So I feel like a disclaimer is definitely in order before we start this video, right? Because I feel like, in this day and age of when it comes to politics and, whenever you talk about politics in any way possible, and even if you go to condemn one side, people will initially push you over to the other side automatically. So I will just say before we get into this video is that I am no way in support of what's going on over in the Middle East. No, I'm not support, but that doesn't mean that I am in support of one side. No, I think that both sides equally have their faults. I think that both sides are definitely evil, and as we go on through this video, I'm definitely going to mention the side that doesn't get enough criticism, because we all know that what Israel does on the Gaza Strip, we all know that it's horrible. We all 100% do. But that goes on over there, right? And even though that's been going on in the Middle East for a couple years now, there's been protests around in especially the Western world, right? And it has been no short of protests here in Australia. But recently, over the weekend, we had a protest on the Sydney Harbour Bridge. That's right, they shut down the whole entire fucking Sydney Harbour Bridge. Now, I have nothing wrong with protests, right? Especially when it comes to protests with things that involve Australia directly, okay? But obviously, this is something that doesn't involve Australia. And I am also in favor of protests of when it comes to things being on the side of the street, right? If something's on the side of the road and you're not putting anyone out of convenience, I think that there is nothing wrong with that as long as it's peaceful, right? But shutting down the whole entire fucking Sydney Harbour Bridge, you are putting so many people out of commute. People are trying to go about their day, trying to go to work, and you're shutting down the whole entire road. To me, is absolutely ridiculous. But it's not just this of why there was such an issue with the protest that was going on over in Sydney over the weekend, as there was a lot of things, a lot of flags, a lot of photos, and a lot of signs that caused a lot of eyebrow raising over the weekend that I think are not enough like social media and also news sites are talking about, especially here in Australia. It always seems that whenever these things go along, they always just talk about the good sides of things, and they obviously don't talk about the bad sides of when it comes to these protests. And one of them is the fact that during this protest that was seen, some people were flying the Al-Qaeda flag. That's right, this flag right here is the flag of Al-Qaeda, the same organization that was run by Osama bin Laden, the same people who caused the 9/11 attacks, caused thousands of people to die, and had caused terror attacks for decades. That's right, decades. These people caused terror attacks in their own country and also throughout the Western world. And this flag was flown throughout the protest seen in Sydney over the weekend. Not just that, there was also a photo, a massive sign of the Iranian supreme leader. Now, if you don't know who this guy is, he is the exact same person that turned Iran from a free country where women had rights to the country where it is now, where women have absolutely no rights in their country. And as a matter of fact, they have protested several times over many years to have their freedom, to have their rights. And whenever these women go out and protest for these rights, unlike here in Australia and the Western world where we have the privilege to protest peacefully, these women are kidnapped and killed multiple times and are never given their rights or their freedoms. And it's kind of funny and kind of contradictory to think, because I would see that a lot of people who are protesting for Palestine, and you've seen it over like the last few years, is that whenever these people do, especially the women in these crowd, I would think that a lot of the women who are protesting for Palestine, right, because they are for, human rights, that they themselves, they would be feminists. Well, I think that, if you're in the crowd that's supporting someone who's got this picture holding up the Iranian supreme leader who is definitely against having women's rights, I mean, that doesn't sound very feminist to me. Arguably one of the funniest ones was the fact that there was a sign that was queers for Palestine. I've seen this has happened multiple times over like the last few years since this has been going on, okay? And these people have got to be some of the dumbest people out of all of this, all right? Like a lot of these people are just evil, right? Holding up the Al-Qaeda flag, holding up a photo of the Iranian supreme leader, okay? And a couple other things that we're going to get into as well. But these people are just straight dumb, okay? Because Hamas, who is supporting Palestine, if you were gay in Palestine, they would kill you. You would die. In Iran, if you had to come out as someone in support of LGBT, you would be stoned to death. You would be whipped to death. So the fact that you're going ahead and supporting an organization who would have you killed and beheaded immediately, to me is just quite comical. Here's another one, which I find absolutely just ridiculous, that I saw, of a child holding up a sign that says, "Behead all those who insult the prophet," with what I'm guessing is his mother taking a fucking photo of him. And they allow this? So you're not going to allow anyone to criticize like your religion whatsoever? I mean, me, myself, I am a Christian, okay? I always wear a cross around my neck. But if someone wants to go ahead and criticize my religion, say that they don't believe in God, they don't believe that, Jesus died for our sins, that doesn't bother me. It doesn't care. If you want to insult my religion, doesn't really care. But the fact that you're saying to behead like anyone who insults your religion, this to me just seems of like what's going on in the UK, where like legitimately the Labour Party in the UK is trying to pass an Islamophobia policy. They're even posting about it and boasting about it on their fucking like the official Labour website. That to me is like a restriction of someone's freedom of speech. And this one, to me, this wasn't in Sydney, but this was in Melbourne, but it still definitely relates to all of these like protests that's been going on recently. And this to me is one of the most like disgusting and disgraceful one of all, is the fact that there was some people who these people don't look like they're that old of people either. They look like they're like either late teens or early 20s, burning the Australian flag. Not just that, but they were also spray painting on the floor, "Abolish Australia." That's right. These people fled war-torn countries where they are restricted by their rights, countries that are extremely against like people's freedom of speech, and then they going ahead and burning the flag of the country that they fled to and saying to abolish that country. My family, okay, little info, my family is a family of immigrants. My grandparents, like half of my grandparents, weren't born in this country, and then the other half that were, like, they were only born like not long after their parents moved over here. And all of my family came from war-torn Europe after World War II. That's where my family fled from. They fled from multiple countries, from Poland, from Greece, from Italy, many countries that face a lot of issues during World War II. And they came over here legally. They've worked here ever since then, and they have respected Australia in every right possible. My grandfather, who was born in Greece, he's been here most of his life. He considers himself an Australian, and he would never ever do anything disrespectful like this and go ahead and burn the Australian flag. Even if there was something that was going on over in Greece or Italy, I myself would never burn the Australian flag. I respect the Australian flag in every way possible because it has given my family the right to live here and the freedom to live here. I don't really talk about this topic, okay? Because it's something that goes on not in my country, okay? Whenever there's something that doesn't go on in my country, or, majority of the time on my channel, I like to talk about internet drama, right? I like talking about stupid things on the internet, but I don't really talk too much about this. And even when I do, the only times that I've ever talked about it is when it's come to Twitch and the fact that I don't think that they uphold their terms of service well enough of when it comes to, the people. They allow people to talk, criticize one certain thing and then don't criticize the other, right? But I am talking about this because this is now involving my country. And I find this quite ridiculous, all right? Because it has been reported that supposedly Australia has been exporting lethal arms to Israel, but Australia itself has denied this, okay? This is very unconfirmed. It's very on the fence of whether Australia is actually sending arms to Israel. Supposedly ever since the October 7 attacks, all lethal arms exports to Israel has completely stopped. So that you don't necessarily know, right? It's on the fence thing. But one thing that we do know is that Australia's government has committed more than $130 million in humanitarian assistance to help civilians in Gaza and Lebanon since October 7th, 2023. So I don't understand why these people are protesting against all of this. It's not like our government is included in this in any way possible. We have nothing to do with the conflict. And even then, like, you're protesting the Free Palestine, your government's helping them. Your government is literally going out of their way and spending millions of dollars to send aid to that part of the world. If anything, you should be mad at the Hamas who is over there, who supposedly they have been stealing aid away from the Palestinian people. That's why there's so much starvation that's been going on in the country, is because even though there's been reports of so much aid that's been sent over to the Gaza Strip, Hamas has actually been intercepting a lot of that aid, stealing it from themselves and taking it away from the civilians because they want to make the situation look worse than it even is. And another reason why I can't stand stuff like this, right, is because this itself costs taxpayers money, millions of dollars. It does. Like, protests here in Australia costs us so much. Just in the Victorian taxpayers, like for last year, it cost $4 million just because of the Palestinian protests, just to get police out on the street to make sure that these protests don't escalate in any way possible. You are costing the taxpayers money, millions of dollars for this. And like, I want to know who's paying for these protests, because these protests aren't done out of the good of people's hearts. No. The people who set these up, they're paid by higher people. It's been outed multiple times in the past, especially in America, that a lot of people, especially the ones that run this, they're getting paid to do this stuff. And also, is that, why are we protesting? For one, something that doesn't even involve our country. Two, like, what Australia, like, we are legitimately, it's proven, it's shown that we are actually sending foreign aid to Gaza. So you are getting what you want. We can't stop the war. We can't. Australia is too small. We don't have enough influence in the fucking world to stop it. Okay? But we're still sending aid over there. We should be protesting issues that are happening here in Australia. That's what we should be protesting, not something that's going on overseas. Why don't we protest of the amount of homelessness that we have going on here in Australia? What about the youth crime that has been increasing here in Australia that the government hasn't been doing nothing about? How about the unemployment rate that is constantly rising here in this country? Those are the things that we should be protesting about, not about something that is going on in another country that we are legitimately sending aid towards. And the people that are inside these protests are legitimately supporting terrorist organizations burning the Australian flag and showing photos of people who are against women's rights. This is ridiculous and absolutely fucking insane. And I hate the fact that not enough people, especially in this country when it comes to the media, aren't covering the bad actors that are involved in these protests and not outing them for the disgusting behavior that they show. And this isn't to say as well that there's not bad actors on both sides. No, there was supposedly this woman who was a former, I think like someone who was running for the Greens party here in Australia. She was like beaten by someone who was against the whole entire Palestinian movement, right? And against Free Palestine. Completely disgusting. And I absolutely am against doing that as well. I am for peaceful protesting, okay? Getting violent in any way possible, even if you disagree with someone, is completely disgusting in every way possible. And this stuff shouldn't even happen. And I condemn the people who fucking do this too. And you're a complete idiot. But what I think that this is going to lead to here in Australia is that you see it a lot, especially in Europe at the moment, where now people have started to revolt in like the UK and especially in Spain as well. They're starting to now revolt and not just like say that these things need to stop and we need to stop supporting, what's going on overseas, and we should be focusing more on the issues that's going on in this country. Don't bring illegal immigration into the countries anymore from the people from these war-torn countries. But now it's leading to extremism on the opposite side. And that is what I think is going to eventually happen here in Australia, is that if we keep letting people burn the Australian flag, fly these terrorist organization flags, is that eventually you're going to see people who aren't just like me, who are sitting here and saying that like this is bad and we should be like, you know, not allowing these things to happen in our country, is that you're going to get people who are going to start getting fucking violent. You're going to get people who are starting to, you know, protest and revolt on the opposite side against this, and you're going to have like this completely divided country, and it's going to just lead to even more violence. That is what I think is going to happen, because it's what you're seeing in the UK and especially in Spain as well at this very moment. So I could definitely see something like that happening, and I don't want that happening in my country. I don't. I honestly really fucking don't. But I would definitely like to hear what you guys think about this whole entire situation down below. That is going to be from me. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Peace out.